Armed American military police in their famous white helmets worked with our own to ensure that the vital secrets brewing within the dock gates should not be probed by any unauthorized person. To replace the former ruined ARP control center, a new docks control was built with walls of steel and concrete 14 feet thick. Never again would this important nerve center become the helpless target for German bombs. With invasion as their watchword, the Southern's workshops set to with an astonishing versatility to construct some of the odd and unfamiliar craft required for a continental landing. Much of the work involved in this man-sized job was done by the skillful fingers of women, who worked with exemplary application in a joint effort to speed our forces across the Channel, this time to victory. During 1943 and 44, hundreds of workmen arrived unheralded at Southampton docks. They were the scene shifters recruited to prepare Southampton's stage for a spectacle of unprecedented magnitude. Mulberry Port was being produced. The general idea of the Mulberry Port scheme was to prefabricate a harbour. Vast pier heads, pierced by mooring columns, were to be linked to the land by floating moles, and protected from the possibility of heavy seas by concrete breakwaters sunk at the required spot. By means of this artificial harbour, the indispensable doorway to Hitler's Europe was prepared for the passage of the invasion troops. These Cleopatra's needles, on which the pierheads rode up and down on the water's surface, moored them to the seabed. And here is one of the floating moles for landing invasion troops and their supplies. And this, a finished pontoon, ready for action. As during the actual invasion, the weather was unusually stormy, the importance of the breakwaters mentioned before cannot be overemphasized. The sections were constructed at various places as well at Southampton, assembled at the docks, and towed across the Channel with the rest of the Mulberry Port components. These views of the breakwater caissons during construction give some idea of the size of the job in hand. Southampton was undoubtedly the choice of location for the work. Two of her dry docks, one of them the famous King George V graving dock, the largest in the world, became miniature shipyards on their own account, with all hands contributing to the forging of this veritable key to the continent. As 0 hour approached, so was the construction work intensified. Men were engaged night and day on this all-important task with surprisingly little interruption from enemy planes. In the dry docks, as soon as work on the caissons had progressed sufficiently, they were floated out and completed in wet berths nearby, while activity recommenced in the dry docks at once. Southampton, with her double tides and her 7 miles of deep water quays, played a unique part in the Mulberry Port scheme, which resulted directly in the downfall of Germany and the bringing of peace to Europe. The Invicta, a super ship completed after the outbreak of war, had never fulfilled her intended peacetime purpose. Here she is being overhauled and preparing for her D-Day task of transporting troops and their landing barges to the French coast. The Invicta carried 6 of these landing craft slung alongside on davits of special construction, designed to avoid damage during their launching in possible rough weather. The noble work of the Red Cross was greatly aided by 2 more southern ships, the Isle of Jersey and the Dinar. Many an unfortunate casualty at this time can testify with gratitude to the smooth passage he received in these vessels while on their errands of mercy. A whole sisterhood of other ships, wistfully remembered in connection with so many pleasant continental trips in former years, had rendered yeoman service since the day they donned battle dress. The Isle of Guernsey, Biarritz, the Maid of Orleans, and the Canterbury are shown here waiting in the wings for their invasion cue. All of these ships, with the exceptions of the Dinah and the Maid of Orleans, survived their subsequent D-Day adventure without serious harm. A sidelight on dockside activities during the immediate pre-D-Day period is provided by the Providore Department, which undertook the revictualling of vessels with food and necessaries direct from the Providore boat. With such a host of craft standing by waiting for orders, the Providore became one of the busiest and most popular departments working right through the invasion period. It's natural that the growing momentum of public opinion regarding the actual time of the expected invasion of Europe should have had its repercussions. At Southampton, everything was now prepared and ready for the fray. The air of suspense grew quite unbearable, and still the order didn't come. Everywhere lay the enormous sea of supplies, the countless craft of incredible variety, waiting and waiting. And all unexpectedly it happened. Instead of a routine combined operations exercise, the invasion was on. Democracy was to cross swords with the Nazi for the last time. D-Day had come and gone. The supreme importance of the task confronting the Allied forces demanded that this time there should be no failure in the supply lines. Southampton's dock roads were crammed with vehicles impatiently waiting for a cross-channel passage. During 1944, the gross tonnage of Southampton shipping totaled 23 million tons, excluding the small craft. 2 million tons were dealt with over the quays. The men over there were undoubtedly getting full support from the war factories of Britain, and America too. Largely due to the unexpectedly heavy weather during the actual invasion, things had not gone entirely smoothly. There came constant and urgent demands for further supplies and reinforcements, and, as always, Southampton somehow coped with a large share of this tremendous traffic. It should be remembered that throughout the war, the docks were still operated and managed by the Southern Railway. To get all the supplies over the Channel, a smooth working cooperation between the railway and the military personnel was absolutely necessary. Colored American troops performed a particularly fine job in the rapid loading and dispatch of innumerable cargoes. More and more men came with the stores. Through Southampton's dock gate, indeed a gateway to victory, they poured in with one idea: to carry right on to the heart of Nazi Germany till it was all over there. And the sooner, the better.